CSS, welcome back everybody. I'm Prakash Pradhan, your trainer for this entire series. In today's topic, we're going to talk about selector ID and the class. First, we need to understand the difference between your ID and a class whenever you are trying to design any page with the help of the CSS. Of course, we are going to have this series from the basics, so that's why don't worry, we are going to do step by step. So now, today we are going to talk, today we are going to see the practical implementation, how your selector and ID can be used. That means the class and ID can be used as a selector. Now, there is one difference. When you use class and ID as a selector that we have been using since our previous coding, actually I mean to say that. Now, there is only one difference. If you understand that difference, trust me guys, you are going to be very friendly with this ID and the class. Now, if I use a class selector, so in that case, what we can do is that inside a one tag, you can apply multiple class. I repeat again, if I use your class selector, in that case, you will be able to use multiple class inside a one tag. That means in a one, your tag, you are going to apply the multiple classes. That means some might be in a form of your color, some might be in a form of your font size. So multiple properties can be applied over here. Whereas if I use ID selector in CSS, in that case, inside a one tag, I'll be able to use only one ID actually. That means only one unique ID will be used over here. Multiple cannot be used. So now let's see practically how it works. Okay, now let's see the practical implementation, how to use your class and the ID using a CSS. So there is one file which I have created over here, and I have saved this file in order to save your time, but as you can see over here, there is no content. So we'll need to create the new content over here. So let's give a title over here. Let's say class and ID, whatever name or the heading that you like to give as in a form of your title that you can deploy yourself. Okay, and I do believe that is true. Remember, when we declare any style with the above, in order to work with their class and ID, your content should come inside a body. So what we're going to do now, we are going to declare first style, first one. Okay, now, and we have been working since many days, so I do believe that you already know we don't need to have all of these things. So now in style, first I'm going to work with the ID, and I do believe that when we declare ID, it has to start with the hash symbol. Okay, now what name would you like to give? Let's say first, so I give a name of my first ID as a first itself. So whichever name you are interested over here, you can give it as per your need. So which property you are going to use? Let's say color. Okay, I'm going to use color. Let's give a red, dark red, anything you want. It is up to you. Okay, now this is the first ID which I have used. Now I'd like to create another one ID. So let's say this is another one ID. So I'd like to give a name over here. First, we'll add it 1. Okay, you can write anything you want. Now over here, so this time, rather than giving a color, since the color property is already applied over here, so let's go for the font. Okay, so that means the font size. So let's go for the font size. How much? Let's say we are going to give in 100 pixel. So 2 IDs have been generated over here. Okay, but in a body section, we have not written anything. So that's why we are going to declare the body part over here. Okay, that means I'm going to say over here, style is already done. This body will not be here. Okay, don't forget. So body will get started after closing this style. So I'm going to write the body portion. Now we are going to write over here or declare the main portion where the contents are going to get displayed associated with this ID. So I'm going to write over here heading 1. Let's say I can give ID. Okay, so what is the name of your ID? If you remember, that is the first. Okay, which I'm going to use it over here. And the content that I'd like to write, let's say ID sample. You can write anything you want. So I'm going to close this. Okay, it's already closed. Now if I want to have another one data, let's say it's 1, again I'm going to give this. So I'm going to give this one, let's say second ID data. You can write anything you want. Okay, now it is already closed. Now let's save this first. Okay, now I'm going to save it. This file is not saved so far, so I'm going to save it and I'm going to open in a browser. So if you have a look over here, the content over here, now we have used only one ID over here. And how many IDs do we have over here? Two, first and first one. What about if I write over here first and first one? Both the IDs I'm going to use over here. So I'm going to save it. Okay, and then I'm going to refresh it. You see the effect is removed. That means that was the thing I was trying to explain you, the difference between your class and ID. So if you use ID inside a tag, you can use only one ID. See, I was using the first ID. In the first ID I have used the color. So that was first displayed in a dark red. But second time what I did, I added another one ID over here, which was clearly mentioned in the previous theoretical portion. I clearly said that if you use a ID, that means class ID, in that case, what's going to happen? Inside the tag, you can use only one ID. Okay, now if I change it now, rather than your ID, I'm going to use class. So the class is specified by the dot. I do believe you still remember. Okay, now rather than saying ID, I'm going to write over here class. Okay, so how many classes do we have? So first I'm going to use only one so that you can find the difference. You see previous output. Why? Because we use the ID. Okay, now if I use a class, this content can have two properties at the same time. So now if I remove it, let's say first one, I remove this one, I'm going to save this, then I'm going to go to the browser, I'm going to refresh. So which color? This is dark red. So previously what we did, we tried to use two class in a one tag, that was not applicable. Now over here you see the pixel is not 100 pixel over here. So now if I write over here first one and I'm going to save it, I'm going to refresh it, boom, you see the difference. That means over here I'm using class selector. Previously I use ID selector. So in a class selector you can use your two class in a single tag. So over here S1 tag is used. So over here how many class I use? This is the first class and this is the second class. So this first class says my data is going to get displayed in a dark red. And the second year class says that this content will get displayed in 100 pixels. So let's try to bring a change over here. Let's make it 200 pixels. I'm going to save it. I'm going to refresh it. And you see the size is quite bigger. So I do believe you clearly understood the difference between your class and the ID. That means two types of selector we talk about over here for today. First one is the class. Second one is ID. Again, the difference, if I use the ID selector over here, in that case inside a one tag you can use only one ID, whereas if I use a class, in that case inside a one tag you can use multiple class also. So that brings the end of this session. So if you find it fruitful, please do like and subscribe. Thank you.